We back with another reflection on the Daily Vedantic. And the reflection for today is on the breakdown of the three classical yogas. The three classical yogas within India, you have karma yoga, you have bhakti yoga, and you have jnana yoga, spelled G-N-A-N-A, jnana. It is closely related to gnosis, that you have the Gnostics in the West. You have agnostic, has the same root word, although the a before that gives it the opposite meaning. But jnana yoga, the yoga of knowledge. Gnosis is all about knowledge. You have bhakti yoga, which is about devotion to the higher. You have karma yoga, which is all about service and action towards the higher. You also have hatha yoga, which is for physical asanas and postures. But the three classical approaches to the philosophical aspect of yoga, which means to join. Yuj is the root of the word yoga in Sanskrit, which means to join, to remedy a separation, to join. Religare, religion, the root of religion, religare means to reunite, to join. Yoga, therefore, and religion have the same meaning between them. To join, to reunite, to remedy a separation. But the three classical approaches are very different in kind. But the three classical yogas are very different. You have service and action for those oriented towards action. You have bhakti for those oriented towards devotion. Contemporary Christian views are very devotional in nature. There are 30,000 different sects within Christianity, so there are 30,000 different approaches that we know of, at least. That's the latest estimation. So there are many variations amongst any major tradition, but most of them are devotional in nature, meaning devoting one's life to the higher, to the Father in Christianity's sake. So then you also, by the way, have Christian mysticism, which is very much about inner experience, participation with the divine, with different approaches. Like in the sect of Greek Orthodoxy, for example, you have Hesychism, which is very much a participation and reunion with the divine. Then you have Sufism in Islam, you've got Kabbalism in Judaism. So you do have these threads of participation, experience, and reunion with the divine in nearly every major world tradition. But within Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, there is an incorporation, and a beautiful incorporation of service, action, and devotion, bhakti yoga, but there's also a cultivation and an emphasis placed on knowledge. Knowledge. Within the philosophy of Vedanta, the emphasis is on knowledge because with knowledge, you know how to devote your life to the higher. With service, you know where you can provide the most service. Or in another direction, maybe you realize, I actually would ruin lives in that direction if I provided service over there. The example Ram Dass would always give is Typhoid Mary, a woman working at a food kitchen in the early 20th century, giving everybody, because she was asymptomatic, giving everybody typhoid fever, killing countless people while thinking she was providing a service, working at a food kitchen. Alan Watts, he would use this quote so great of, "Kindly let me help you," said the monkey to the fish, putting him safely up a tree. With knowledge, we're not a monkey putting a fish up in the tree. We're not unknowingly giving people typhoid fever with, metaphorically or literally, with our approach to service. So much of service has so much ego in it. So much ego. It's working in the nonprofit realm right out of college for a few years and studying that world. My major was development economics. You see so little impact and so much vanity. It's just as ego-serving as nearly anything that I saw in the for-profit realm. So, with knowledge, maybe, and by the way, it is said in Vedanta that with knowledge comes humility. So, with knowledge, not only does it help with that acute issue, does it bring humility as well, but with knowledge, you also recognize, maybe the impact would be greater if we shift our resources, our approach over here instead of doing this. With knowledge of having typhoid fever, maybe not going and serving in that food kitchen is the best thing you could do for your community. Doing anything else but that thing that you might be convinced is helping might be infinitely better for your community. As the 8th century sage within this philosophy, Shankara, which means destroyer, pretty kick-ass name for a philosopher. Destroyer, which is Shankara's another name for Shiva, which also is the god of destruction. The reverence for destroyer, for destruction, is not for kind of wanton destruction, cavalier destruction, but it's the reverence for the destruction of ignorance. Shankara, he famously said that knowledge alone destroys ignorance. The emphasis on knowledge within these classical yogas, within Vedanta, is that it destroys our ignorance. It provides clarity. That's why I often say within this podcast project that philosophy is clarity. It's not an academic subject studying these people throughout history that wrote nearly 1 million incomprehensible words in a bunch of books and trying to memorize all of their concepts and thinking philosophy is this thing you do in isolation in the cabin in the woods. Philosophy is clarity. Seeing things clearly. That was the intention behind the Greeks that philosophized. The intention behind the Indians that philosophized thousands of years before that. The intention from the Vedas, which means truth or knowledge, to the intention behind any Vedantic lecture or any reflection or episode on this podcast project. Clarity. And who doesn't want more of that? Said another way, it is a removal of ignorance. Seeing things clearly is a removal more than anything else. A removal of the blindfold, of the dirty, muddy windshield. To see things clearly, to remove our ignorance, our blindfolds. The root of the word apocalypse means the unveiling. To unveil. To see things clearly. What is the value of knowledge? What is the value of philosophy? It is to remove our ignorance, to destroy our ignorance, to see things clearly. And this knowledge bomb from Shankara hits it right on the head. But kick the tires of it. See if it actually is true in your estimation or through your lived experiences. This quote from Shankara. The quote that says, "Knowledge alone destroys ignorance." In other words, knowledge alone provides clarity. That is why there is such an emphasis on the union that is formed from knowledge. I should say reunion. That is formed through knowledge to the divine, to our communities, to ourselves. There is a whole lot of import placed on devotion and service within this philosophy. It is a a weaving of all three of these, a braid of all three of these practices. But the one that makes the other two stronger, and therefore makes the entire braid, the entire rope, as strong as possible, is knowledge. How does one build knowledge? Daily reflection. Not just hearing new things, not reading new things, but daily reflection on that knowledge. Ideally before the sun rises. It's things like this, but hopefully people grow beyond an on-ramp to this philosophy like this and go to the links for lectures directly from our teacher. The lectures, the same lectures that we all listen to each morning from the comfort of your phone, from the comfort of your couch. It's the app, Vedanta World app, where you can hear directly from the 98-year-old sage that outlines this philosophy so much better than a cover philosopher like myself, just playing the hits of the masters. You get to hear it directly from him. But whatever you do, whatever approach you take to clarity, do it daily. And do it with 4, 5 times the amount of reflection on what's been studied, what's been heard, what's been read, than on the absorption of something new. Because as this philosophy will say, reflection is 100,000 times more powerful than listening. And through that reflection, then it takes you to the ultimate. It takes you to experience. And as is said within this philosophy, experience is 100,000 times more powerful than reflection. You get to that experience through daily study, daily reflection. And that is today's reflection on the Daily Vedantic. We'll see you next time.